Hey. Hi.
Hey, welcome back to page 3. I'm Ellie.
I'm Sydney.
And today's video, I'm actually so excited for this.
Yeah.
We decided, I think the title is going to be something like it for those who want to know the type of reading that built Sid and I, which we've been doing like a lot of book things, which I hope is okay with everyone that's watching. And I hope you don't mind. Like, obviously, we're going to maybe touch on other things later down the line, but we're just on our book kick right now, and I'm totally vibing with it.
Yeah.
So, Sid and I are going to talk about the different stages of our reading experiences and the different books that built us
Yeah.
along the way.
And for some context, which we've talked about this a lot, but I just feel this is like a good designated place to say it. I was like always reading as a kid because my mom is a huge reader and my mom was also a teacher. So that was like our option of activity in the house. And so I always read, I always did the summer readings for school, that sort of thing. But I never like at a bookstore or something, or even had the urge to go to a bookstore to be like, oh my God, I want to read this book. I'm so excited to read this book. It was just kind of what was available. And then dear Miss Ellie introduced me to some titles and I found a whole new world. And so a lot of these are from that period of time. And I just think it's so funny because they just bleed into such an interesting time of our lives for you guys to hear about that it's just so
Totally.
funny to reflect on.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's super fun to reflect on all of the types of books that we used to read and all these things. And I honestly, there is like a lot of me that's super like envious of the fact that you have this, your mom made you read books, because I think that because you were forced, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, you naturally learned the value of certain types of books. Like, there are so many times where I want to read really incredible books that everybody loves, but because I'm only used to reading like fantasy romance novels, it just takes me longer time, or takes me like more time to really get into it or really like be interested in it, I suppose. So yeah. So this is like, I'm like the dark side and Sid is like the good side.
I was like persuaded into reading a lot of like historical fiction, World War II-esque stuff. It's also important to know my mom and my grandma shared a Kindle account for like years and years and years. So my mom only read what my grandma read, and then I only read what my mom read. So I wasn't like I was never given like it's not I could have if I wanted to, but like I was never exposed to the Colleen Hoover book surgence of like the late or what was that, like 2015, 2016 was like the initial surge of that, you'd say? And that was like just not in my purview of things that I was seeing. Like I was being shown Night or like The Book Thief or like things like that.
Night
So
was crazy. Yeah. Well, those
yeah,
books, I think a lot of them too, we had to read like in
for
school.
school. Yeah.
But there's also something super like interesting too about, and I wanted to do like an entire podcast episode on like the underlying misogyny within like the book world, and like specifically romance, because I feel like a reason that the romance genre wasn't as popular as it is now, I would say it was selling as great as it was now, but it wasn't like so widely like accepted that you read,
Yeah.
and more like taboo, is because a lot of people like would shit on women for the things that they read and the things that they like naturally enjoyed.
It's actually so funny you say that because there was a book I was gonna send you this week that I saw this girl. She's an author and she wrote the book. And I believe, I really hope I'm not wrong about it. I believe it's called The Female Fantasy. And she wrote a romance novel that is a romance novel with the undercurrent, like purpose, meaning, situation in order to like attack all of the misogynistic things and tropes that come with romance novels that people like attribute to why like women love romance novels and they're fake and they're love and they're this and they're that. And so she wrote a parody essentially about it.
I love
And
that.
yeah, and she just posted this whole thing about why she wrote it. And anyway, I added it to the books that I want to read. And so it's just funny you said that because it's literally exactly why she wrote the book, like quote.
Well, that's so interesting. There's another book before we get into like the rest of the video, but there's another book that that a professor of mine that I adored. I took a queer theory class. And it was one of my favorite classes I've ever taken, and my professor, they told me about this book that was written called Reading the Romance, and I've read sections of it for, like, other classes, but it's basically about this woman who, like, went to go interview, like, a bunch of, like, avid, like, romance readers in, like, the Midwest and prove how, like, they were, like, misogynistic and, like, anti-feminist and how, like, all of these, like, would be, like, this anti-feminist thing, and she went in with this claim being, like, so high and mighty, being like, "I know I'm
Yeah,
better than you," with her, like, intellect and her, like, academic abilities, and then was actually met by, like, a bunch of women that were hardcore feminists, but their present current reality didn't allow them to, like, act out in these ways, so they would escape into these romance novels that allowed them to have, like, the power that they didn't have and the status that they
yeah,
didn't have, and to basically feel this sense of, like, power, and totally, like, it was really powerful. That
yeah.
entire thing is just so, again, like what we were saying, a couple, you don't know, even if you think you know the book that is written, you don't, even if you know the book that they're reading, you don't know what they're finding in those pages.
Yeah, it's the same thing. That's actually a perfect example of that. I'm gonna look deeper into this female fantasy thing and get back to you on the
Yes.
way she described it in her description was so much more eloquent than the way I just did. So
Maybe
I'm
we can read
gonna,
it for book of the month.
speaking of, hope
Yeah.
everybody's excited. We'll be talking about that at the end.
So, okay, so we're gonna break this video into 3 sections, our different stages, stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Obviously, you had to make it 3 stages because, hello, it's
We're also
stage.
making up our own we're making up our own category names and our own genres.
Mhm.
So if you've read these, if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, I hope this leads you down an interesting path in your life.
Yes. So, stage 1. Okay, so I'm gonna walk us through stage 1. Stage 1 starts, I'm freshly 15. I'm in between friend groups. To say friend of this person would be a very loose term. Not in terms, like, I think a lot of times, like, friendship in high school is attributed by proximity and duration spent.
Yeah.
However, both proximity and time spent can be a horrible thing if with the wrong person. However, I will always be thankful to this person because they gave me a book, and the book is called Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. And she gave it to me like right around like it must have been
You
my
could
like
drive, so it must have been when you were turning 16.
yeah, it was like right when I was turning 16. She gave me this book and I was obsessed. I was enraptured by this book. Like I had never read, like I literally, like I remember it was 4th of July a couple like days later. My parents always had a tradition of like watching the fireworks. Never really been a big like 4th of July person ever, but like this year specifically, I literally was like, my parents, don't talk to me. I am reading this book. Do not touch my door. After I read this book, I was needing to read another one like it, and I found a book which I've talked about in previous video, called Paper Princess by Erin Watt. I read this book. I am brought in to what we'll call stage 1, which is one girl, multiple boys taking down corrupt systems.
Also, I just want to say 2 really important things so you guys get the message. 1, we grew up in a beach town where 4th of July was quite literally everybody's fucking Super Bowl, okay? If you
Literally.
were not at the beach, 8 AM, bikini on, drink in hand, you were not in the squad, okay?
And
So, Ellie's
you can
desire to be
assume,
locked in her
and you can assume that Sid and I both were not at
not
that beach.
present.
We were
Yeah,
not present there. That was
we were
not
not.
our thing.
But Ellie's desire and lack of FOMO by being locked in her room to read this book on 4th of July would be astonishing to anybody that grew up in our town.
Yeah.
Secondly, when we say one girl, multiple men, it's not what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Get your head out of the gutter. Okay. It's found family. One girl accepted into the brotherhood. Found family is not even a strong enough word to really give this category. And I vividly remember Ellie's Paper Princess era because we took a photography class together and she would read on her phone during class and she would just sit there, phone on desk, reading like
You
this.
are such an amazing friend. The way that you remember things about me and always just make me feel so much better about like who I was in high school. I don't actually know if anybody else is gonna listen to that and be like, "Oh my god, like she's so cool." But like I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm so proud of myself." Like I was reading.
Who didn't read on anything but her phone until a year ago. I don't think you guys understand that. She exclusively phone read. So she would sit in class and read Paper Princess, and she was telling me about this book, and I was like, I think I had said something along the lines of like the last book I had read was like Great Gatsby or something for school. Like I was like, girl, I don't read like you read. Like I read a lot. I have lots of pages done every year. I'm not like seeking books for enjoyment. Like they're just present to me. And she was like, "You
And
need
then
to read this book."
the beast awakened, and it's actually so cute, actually, the way that, like, both of us just fell so headfirst into this thing, and, like, also Syd was, so into photography and, and she's so talented at photography, you should go check out her photo account. She was really paying attention in class, she was really learning things. I wasn't. I love photo. I was alright at it, like, I was okay, but I wouldn't say, Syd was, guiding the film cameras, and I was, over here corrupting her, being like, "Girl, you're never gonna believe it. I just read on my phone. It was crazy." Yeah.
Also, I just, if you go through me and Ellie's messages, I still have screenshots of this. If it's me, it's, every couple of days, me being like, "Send me another one." No
Yeah.
context, just send me another one. You know what I like. You know what I want to read now, because anything you read now, I have to read. And
Oh, yeah.
I read Paper Princess, and I've always had a Kindle. My mom would just give me her old one, so I downloaded Paper Princess on Kindle, and I'm pretty sure I actually pirated it on Kindle, or at least the second
Yeah.
one or third one in the series or something.
I think I sent you a link. Do you
Yes,
remember
because
that?
I
Or
know I pirated one of them.
we used to have to, send each other links illegally of these books so that we could read them.
Yeah. And so I downloaded it, and actually, funny enough, my sister, during her junior year of high school, roughly around the same time this was me and Ellie, read Paper Princess, and we frequently talk about it in our house, and that's, the one book that I have, recommended to her that she's really taken to heart and, has really read,
I
but I
can't
was addicted.
I can't wait for the day that Maya comes on this podcast because, I remember she is such an anomaly. Sydney's younger sister, hey Maya, I hope you're listening to this, is
But,
such so they're so different as sisters. And I remember Maya and I she would literally be like, "Okay, do you think that Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas is at Barnes and Noble? Like, I just went, they don't have it. Like, what do I do?" And I'm like, I
she was
don't
also,
know.
12.
She's
Like like, I said that I wasn't exposed to those books, but somehow Maya was, which
Yeah.
makes it, the timing of this is hilarious, and Maya is the opposite of me. I love her, but we are very different siblings. Anyway, we read Paper Princess, and this is the initial building block of One Girl, Multiple Men Found Family, and if you haven't read Paper Princess, I don't think you can truly grasp what this would have done to two girls that were in pretty flimsy friend groups and felt a little bit alone, okay?
All of these girls came from really tortured pasts. Like they all had
Yeah.
something horrible happen to them. But that's such a good point, Sid, of sorry, I just interrupted you and
No,
that
you're good.
action. Clearly I'm doing so well on it. January 25th, let's go. So I think that something that is so true is Sid and I never felt, which is what we always say about our own friendship, we never felt like we were this is gonna sound so sad, but we never felt like we were the chosen ones.
Yeah, we were never anybody's first pick, which, okay, that sounds fake me in itself, but
Yeah.
just, that's
But
how we felt.
and I didn't know that I was gay until I was in college. So I was
I knew Ellie was gay when Ellie didn't know she was gay.
and I went on to just never feeling like a part of the system. And then all of a sudden I'm like,
And then we
wait,
read Paper Princess, bro, and let me tell you, I genuinely we were actually talking about this recently because I just read a book, which I could do a whole episode on, but I had been feeling a little bit anxious for, a couple of days, and then I realized it was because I was absorbing the character's emotions because she was going through a really anxiety-inducing time, and when I finished the book, then I was like, "Oh, I'm having such a sad few days," and then I realized, "No, bro, you're sad because the book is sad."
that's
So,
actually a really good point.
bro, when I read Paper Princess, it's not that I thought that would happen to her, the rescuing's not even the right word, but, the rescuing that happened during her coming of age, her coming of age story was luscious, and it was successful, and she, proved everybody wrong, and she became this big, powerful thing, and
Mhm.
most people's coming of age stories, life in general coming of age, is the exact opposite of that. And
Yeah.
any coming of age and growth as a person is, typically not an upwards trajectory
I mean,
constantly.
she literally got slingshotted, somebody flicked her into the 1%. She was and this is my cats, okay? All of my cats, okay? I found them on the streets. Wait, I don't know if this is I maybe we won't keep this in, but I have literally found my cats on the streets and took them from the bottom percentages, starving animals, and now they're,
They're
in the
spoiled.
top percentages of the country, and that's what happened to her. She literally got flown okay, stripper one night, private jet the next.
No, and literally, and it's not even that I thought that it was realistic for, me at 13 to even be in her situation. Like, I had a good life, I had great parents, I, like,
Yeah.
went to a great school, I lived in a great area. It was her feelings that she was experiencing were very visceral, I think, to both of us. Like, the anxiety she felt, the stress she felt, like, even if they came from different places, was very relatable. So then this relief of coming of age was so hopeful of like, these good things happen to her. And even if I'm not gonna be on a private jet tomorrow and somebody's gonna come rescue me and I'm gonna have all of a sudden 10 brothers that are my best friends and like all of this stuff, like
Yeah.
whatever. It was such a hopeful thing to be like, oh my God, I can escape into this because her coming of age has these really great things happening for her. So hopefully my coming of age, like it gets better. It gets better. Like it was so easy to be like, if this girl who is dealing with something even harder than I'm dealing with can be rescued and be positive and have all these things happen, then like,
Yeah.
oh, for sure that's gonna happen to me.
Right. And also the idea of like we just really hated our like we complained about our high school. We talked at length about how tough our high school situation was, how tough our high school was just in general, and
It
like all
was
of the
tough. Yeah.
and like this idea, it really taught me like escapism. Like
Yeah.
really for lack of a
I
better word.
would say that's
And
this was our first escapism, I think.
completely. And like as I got and I think that's actually why my relationship with reading had to shift and now it shifted into something like healthier because I used to use reading as like a I don't want to be here, so take me somewhere new. Take me somewhere I don't know. I can't get on my own. I can't because I don't have I'm a teenager. I don't have financial freedom. I don't have anything. Like I can't go anywhere. So like open the pages and let me go somewhere new. I hate it where I am right now.
Yeah,
Let me put my mind somewhere else where it's some where I
totally.
can experience the things that I want to, but I can do it safely.
All two the first two of these stages, I would say, were escapism for both of us, and the third
Completely.
one was the redefining of how to be in pages without, like, only being in pages.
Yes.
Okay, should we give a few more, just, like, rattle off some titles for 1, and then we can diverge to stage 2? Because I feel like Paper Princess is definitely the most prominent
Yes.
first
Yeah.
laid brick.
Yes. Okay. So if you're in that era of like girl, multiple boys that are her
Yeah,
family
yeah.
type of vibe, you would
This is
also
not reverse harem, why choose? Like, that's so important, I'm so anti that trope, it disgusts me. That is not what this is. Actually can't it, like, gives me the heebie-jeebies and makes my skin crawl.
I know
I
I hate
hate it.
it.
Like, when we say multiple men, we mean she gets adopted into the most loyal fucking friend group that ever existed. They'll all kill someone for her. Only one is in love. Okay?
Exactly. All of them
Okay.
are like actually like almost sibling.
Brotherly. Yes. Okay. Rattle off some titles then.
All right, so here we go. Crew by Dijon, Need Seymour.
No.
Masterpiece. I mean,
Read
master.
all of them.
All of
Read
them.
all of them.
We have Boys of Brayshaw by Megan
Read
Brand.
all of them.
I remember when I got to the end of the second one and I realized I was with you know who on our month-long vacation across the fucking country. You know who I'm talking about. And I finished that book. I wanted to start sobbing. And she's like, "Can we go get ice cream?" And I'm like, I just lost my family.
Right now, can you just give me a fucking sec?
And like, yeah. Anyways, but it was
Oh
a
my
whole
God.
thing. So I like finished the end of this book and I was like, what am I gonna do to October? And then I remember I was at a therapy session. I was like, oh, my new book comes out this week. And like I never wanted to tell anybody like the type of books that I read except for Sid and my friends. Like and my a couple of my friends that also understood. And she was like, what book? And I was like, just some light work. just
Mostly what I like think in comparison to what other people like the smutty romance teenage books that were being put out, and like this isn't any discredit to author, but like some of the like Penelope Douglas, Colleen Hoover-esque books that were very much geared towards our age because they were written in a soap opera TV
yeah,
style format.
yeah,
Those I think what we were reading, not that one is better than the other, like, I think both of them are equally as good, but I think what we were reading, there was romance in it, there was smut, like, there whatever, but I would say 90% of that book was truly about like, so emotional.
it was a
I
lot of an internal journey.
there was so much, like, political intrigue to taking down
Super.
society, dismantling the
Yeah.
system, like, it was so it was very, like, dark academia without the, like, intense romance aspect. It was, like, dark academia, found family, and then, like, back burner, she's in love with one of them.
Exactly, and, like, this idea too of, like, you can, like, take down these, like, men who have, like, an underground, like, sex ring, and these,
Yeah,
like which is, like
that one was I
that was Cruel Intentions and then Broken Wings
and
series.
then
The
Twisted whatever was the 3rd one, something yeah.
Silver Swan, if you read that.
With the fucking photo. The photo. I
That was
can't.
crazy. Okay, also, I totally heard what you were saying earlier about, like, that difference with, like, Colleen Hoover, like, Penelope Douglas. Let me just say,
We ate Penelope Douglas up too, like, we're not
I
shading her.
think like, I Penelope Douglas, I think they are a fantastic author. Bully, I think I read that shit 2 times. I
I
literally think
also read it, you sent it to me. It's on the list.
Again, so sorry, Penelope Douglas. I did have to, like, illegally download it online because
Yes.
that's just where I was at in my life.
More so the point to just be that, like, this what we were reading wasn't because we were trying to, like, believe in this, like, high school romance could transcend everything, that this 18-year-old couple was gonna get married and find happiness, like, it was so that was, I would say, our conversations about these books were so frequently not about that and more about, like, "Oh my god, she found out that this person in the friend group's dad runs this underground secret society, and she is dating his son, and they're gonna take it down together with their whole fucking friend group," or like she gets kidnapped by an opposing family and her fucking found brothers show up banging on the fucking door. Like
Yeah.
that's
It
more what our focus was, I think, and I don't
was
even know
so
what genre these books
internal.
fall in. Like, where would you find
Yeah.
these on a bookshelf?
But also it's just, like, so internal, like, I don't know how to explain like, the emotional aspect of these books, and this is what I'm missing from the books now, like, it was so developed emotionally, and it was leaning on soap opera. I understand that, it was very crazy. However, there was something so pulling about it where you were just, like, so and I don't know if it's because my brain chemistry was, like, totally different back then, my hormones were messed the hell up, like, I don't know what you can call it, perfect concoction, perfect, beautiful, like, potion that was made me want to be in these books so fully, and I
Yeah.
never wanna leave them again.
I have found five-star books on five-star books that I love, and
Mhm.
none of these books actually on this list are my favorite book of all time, but they're all 5 stars to me for various
Oh.
reasons. However, I have not found a book that follows the exact genre plot we're discussing with the same fully developed character arc. Like, when I say character arc, I mean the villain, it's not second chance. You watched every internal thought that villain fucking had till they came around. Like, you were in that brain watching the psychology change this person.
Yeah.
I have not found a book that has this, like, girl gets rescued, but she's still a badass, okay? She's not a fucking damsel in distress. She's a
Mm-mm.
badass. Gets rescued, I love a secret society. I love a fucking secret society, and I haven't found anything like this since the list that we're going off of. I really haven't.
Anything like that, the closest that I have is a book that me and you read, and I'll remind you of it after, but
It's the one that we're waiting on the sequel for, correct?
I love how you read my mind like that. I love it.
I can
So,
only
yeah.
think of the author's name, I actually can't think of the name of the book, but yes.
Okay, yeah, so that book would come closer, but I also think it's because a lot of those books were written in high school, and there's something about high school. Like, there's just something about it.
Well,
I don't
being
know.
in high school literally felt like being in euphoria, even though things that were happening in euphoria, like, weren't happening in our school. It's like
That's not true.
everything's
That's
like
not true.
okay, they were happening, but, like, everything was so much more visceral.
Yeah.
Like,
Everything was so
everything was
dramatic.
yes, everything hurt worse, everything felt worse, everything was the end of the world, and not even in, like, a I'm a hormonal teenager way, but, like, everything was so heavy and deep all the
Yeah.
time that I think these didn't like, this girl getting kidnapped in a secret society, like, really wasn't that outlandish, okay? Like
Yeah. Okay, okay. That brings us into stage 2. This is what we call earth-shattering, change soul-binding, soul-changing, soul-reshaping books.
and
These are
this would be my junior year, your senior year,
this would
I
be
would
my
say.
junior this would be COVID. So Sid and I went into COVID, and some of the books that we mentioned before also we read in COVID, but, like, they just they're kind of like we're, like, taking them and putting them into 2 different categories of it because like, we
Yeah.
started to really appreciate them more, I think, now. These books are like, she is been
I mean, she'd
distraught.
really yeah.
She had really been through it, really,
Her
and
tragic past is
horrible.
unheard of.
And then she finds boy, and there's no, like, bully moment here, like, there's no, like, "I
This
hate
is
you."
not an enemies to lovers, like
This is like a, "We're both damaged souls, let us repair each other and help each other repair ourselves."
you're the only person that's ever opened my skin and seen my deepest, darkest secrets laid within. Like, you are the only person that, like, looked me in my eyeballs and you disintegrated my brain into words. Like, you hurt me.
Exactly. And that would be books like Sea of Tranquility. I said it before, I will say it again, this is the best ending I've ever read in my life.
And the ending is unlike
I Binding 13 and Keeping 13. Now I feel the need to say that Sid and I read this before anybody else did. I mean, we read it when it couldn't even be read on Kindle. We
The
had to.
only one the only one that was available for purchase was Binding 13, first of all. Second of all, Saving Six wasn't even picked up by a fucking publisher yet, okay?
It
If
wasn't even
you
like
click through her PDF, it said, "Hopefully coming soon, we would love to launch," like, Saving Six is in the works. Didn't even exist, okay?
Saving Six was like an idea that we had hoped would come, but there was no
Nothing.
it was a potentially happening situation, and I was deeply waiting for it. It took years for this shit to come out, okay? Years.
We read Binding 13 and Keeping 13. And well, I've said this time and time again, I will never read the rest of the series because these two were so, I mean, I can literally tell you where I was sitting, what I was doing, like every detail of when I finished the first one and the second one, that I cannot tarnish like the feel, because I obviously they're YA and like I don't really read a lot of YA anymore. So I cannot go back and tarnish like the honest raw emotions I have about these books. I think if I read them now, I would just wouldn't have that same effect on me. So I literally Binding 13, Keep It 13, I will not touch the rest of the series. Like these are just too important to me to like be tarnished.
Yes, I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
Sorry. Really waiting for you to finish your sentence before I started mine.
No, you go, sister.
So yeah, that's stage 2. And then stage 2 is like a shorter stage. I think I think also some of the books that, and this is something that I have always said to people, the book that built me, I mean like the book that like saved my life, I will never say because it's mine and I won't like but it also fits into this category. I would say another one that I read. Did I ever have you read Reason to Breathe?
Yeah.
That would fit into this category. That was
Yeah.
incredible. Read all 3 of them. And yeah, okay. And then we get to stage 3, which is where we depart, sadly. Ted and
Ellie
I,
goes to college and leaves me behind.
but suddenly it's crazy because we might have departed, but we were always reading the same books, which is why I think it's beautiful.
It's also just crazy because even if we weren't reading the same titles, we were like reading the same underlying story. Like we were reading similar tropes. We were reading, like, even if she was reading fantasy and I was reading nonfiction or like historical fiction or whatever, the fucking underlying thing you could have pasted on the back of either books and
Yeah.
it would have made sense, which is just crazy because like we didn't follow each other in Goodreads. We weren't really keeping up with each other in that way. Like we really weren't talking about books like that. And we were like both finding our adult tastes, like, we kind of didn't have any more books that kind of fell into the first 2 categories. We were in our own coming of age that were happening in these stories. We were graduating, we were moving on with our own lives and whatever, and we were finding, like, our new taste, developed taste, and we ended up in really
Similar
different but similar places. Yeah.
Totally. So I still love Tijan and I still read her work. I think it's amazing. Kiss the Sky by Becca, Christy and Becca, they're sisters. I can't remember their last name. Amazing. I got into like psychological horror, like The Sign of the Patient, Before I Go to Sleep. Mafia Romance came to me. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Incredible. Anything Mariana Zapata. I think I read every single one of her works except for like the newest one because I saw mixed reviews on that. The Grace Year, which was like coming of age, also women overcoming things generally. Court of Thorns and Roses, obviously, fantasy, and a million other things too.
My stage 3 started, I would say, like, I immediately with Before We Were Yours, and I cannot remember the name of the author, which is really terrible
I have
because
it right.
I can't remember her name. Lisa Wingate. Yes. Did you already say it?
Yeah. Well, you thought of it, so who cares?
Okay, well, this book, you're gonna see a similar theme. Sisterhood, but, like, not necessarily relatives, like, just, like, the theme of sisterhood, overcoming, like, extreme triumph. My favorite genre always still will be historical fiction, so this is no surprise. Before We Were Yours, normal fucking people. Normal people, Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney's a genius, okay? If you don't think Rooney's a genius, I actually can't speak to you because I think she's a fucking genius, okay? Normal people, you know what normal people is? It's nothing. All it is normal fucking people. That's it.
It's
The most,
autofiction.
it is the most extreme depiction, like extremely valid depiction of two people coming of age, growing in different ways, trying to fit into each other's lives. It's not working. And literally, like, I could talk about normal people.
People.
Okay. And where the crawdads sing.
So good.
I love where the crawdads sing. And then I went into like a weird lit fic phase where I
Yeah.
was reading like Hello Beautiful, which if you know Hello Beautiful, I was reading that. And we're back to historical fiction. The Nightingale, Kristen Hanna, top 3 book I've ever read in my life. Anything by her. Kristen Hanna, The Nightingale, The Women, The Great Alone. She's a fucking genius. And then I'm telling my friend that everybody's talking about this fuck ass dragon book. And I'm like, bro, like I don't know how you people read this. Keep in mind, I didn't read Harry Potter as a kid. I didn't read Percy Jackson as a kid. I didn't read Hunger Games ever. Not my thing. And my friend was like, "No, no, no, bro. You gotta read this." And I was telling her, I was going off this fucking list, this exact list in my notes app of the books that Ellie has sent me in our time of being friends. And I was like, God, nobody makes like a dismantling the system book anymore. Like nobody makes some badass girl that goes and takes down the government.
Mm.
And she was like, bro, Fourth Wing. And then,
It's really good.
and then,
It unlocks something.
and then I did ACOTAR. Yeah.
ACOTAR. Well, it was the Fourth Wing, then She Called Me, and now here we are.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much order of events.
Literally. So we had other books that we wanted to read, like for the podcast, but we thought of starting with this book for the podcast, a book for the book of the month with Dear Reader by Tate James. And then we quickly realized, no.
I actually
So
never even read the first page.
that's because I called her. I started reading it, and I called her and I said, Sid, I love you, and I know you, and I love you, and because I love you, I know you, and therefore I can tell you this is not the one for you. You're gonna
She
hate it.
literally was like, "Don't it you're gonna hate it," and I took her word for it because she told me one trope, and I was like, "Oh."
So okay, so that's our stages. I think we've pretty like, and now
Yeah.
we're in stage 3, which I think is just like us kind of evolving into reading. Maybe there will
Yeah.
be a stage 4, stage 5. I think it's fun to like evolve as a reader, but always kind of stay grounded in your roots, which is always for, I think, us, underlying consistent always theme is women overcoming something.
Yeah. It's also just really interesting to look back on, like, what we read and how it corresponds to, like, different periods of our life, what we're reading. It's also just interesting to reflect because, like, my taste is so different than it was now. I haven't reread any of those books since I read them the first time.
Yeah.
I read a lot of weird ass literary fiction now that like I probably never would have touched then. And I also didn't I told my friend that I didn't believe in fantasy. And she was like, read a fantasy book. And I was like, it's not a genre to me. Sorry. Like, and now it's like one of my favorite things ever. So it's just interesting to reflect on and see how your reading journey has shaped with you.
Totally.
Speaking
Uh,
of.
Speaking of, it's a book of the month time. So, as we're on this podcasting journey, I don't fear. I'm excited for the ways that we get to know the people that listen to us and they consequently get to know us. And one thing you must know about me is that I am a final boss of procrastination. And so we were supposed to
And
film.
I'm not. I am not.
We were supposed to film 2 hours ago, and then I forgot to read. Not because I didn't love it, I did. It was just because
She had not finished book of the month in time.
I didn't finish Book of the Month in time, because that's just like I was
But
also I'm
she
also
did now.
but I'm working on a thesis, I'm writing my own novel, okay? It's not like I'm doing nothing. Anyways, but I now finished it, so I finished it mere minutes ago. 36 minutes ago. Oh, yeah, do you wanna start?
Yeah, I actually okay, so I know this is bad practice, but I did like have write like what my review, I guess, would be, but mostly because I wrote this like immediately after reading it. And I know we have done a bunch of videos on Goodreads and stuff, but not once have I ever said that you shouldn't post reviews on there because I stand on that everybody should post Goodreads reviews.
Yeah. You
So
always like to write reviews.
yeah, I write a review on every fucking book I mostly for myself. Like I just like going back and seeing what because I write them as soon as that last page is closed, my thoughts are written. So
Yeah.
this is what I said. This is beautiful because of the way it makes you think. The ending made me want to cry because the narrator explains humanity to us from the perspective of someone who had no context of human, personhood, or earth. And it's so strange and makes you think of how our perception of life is derived inherently from being human, or instead learned from behaviors of being consistently surrounded by the existence of humans. She even says at one point, I was forced to acknowledge too late, much too late, that I too had loved and I was capable of suffering and that I was human after all. She didn't know what it was to be human. She only knew her own own form of thinking that she created, her own measures of time and pacing and math and reading. She developed empathy, love, courage, strength, and curiosity all through her own devices that she had to teach herself. It wasn't an example for her. It wasn't a world of context beyond what she could see. It is interesting to think what would have happened if the men in the bunker had escaped. Would their thinking be differently than hers? Would the different emotions, like how she developed empathy and love, be developed by them as well? Or would they have come out a completely different person with no context of the world around them? Would they have traveled or settled? What would they have thought? How would they have thought? What forms of thinking would they have created? I have so many questions, but I guess that's the point. I can't explain, but it reminds me a lot of the same questions and answers that I had or lack thereof after reading Lord of the Flies.
Very well articulated. I love what she said. I think that was the thing that struck most to me was and the thing that made me wanna cry is, like, when she's all alone and she's, like, dying and her body is failing her, and I don't know, I kept waiting for, like, there to be an explanation of, like, why they're in this bunker, why are all these people, and then she found the bus, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is, like, where are we going?" and all of these different things, and to not figure it out actually isn't as frustrating as I thought it was going to be because I loved the poetic wisdom that this narrator, that the author and this main character weaved into the story was so powerful. Like, there were
Totally.
so many lines where I was like, wow, like, just really taken aback. And I think a lot of the things that I really loved about this, I think I usually dismiss books that are defined by their endings because I think that it's irksome, I would say. I love a journey. I love it to be like the progression, which I wouldn't say that this book wasn't a journey. I would just say that like it is one of those things that once you get to the end, which I think I said, the entirety of it kind of shifts and changes like as you look back on it.
Yeah,
And I loved that this book did that for me of like, oh wow, like this is just about a girl who has never known men. Like, and I also, side note, I love when a book brings the title in to the book. Like I eat it up every single.
totally.
I liked the fact that she had said like there have been lines, like, at the end about how she had never gotten her period and she had never been, like, a woman that, like, could reproduce, right? And then it was like she said something along the lines of, like, "But yeah, it's still the thing that kills me." And that was, like, really interesting to me about, like, how just, like, women in general and, like, femininity in general is usually defined by your ability to produce or not produce, and the choices that you make alongside that, whether you want it's loved it. I thought it was
But it's
great.
also just crazy because it's like you said, like the humanity that comes with being a woman is usually based on that. And
Mhm.
the fact that she throughout the whole story grappled with trying to conceptualize what it meant to be a woman. Like she didn't know how to dress for boys. They would talk to her about dancing and flirting, and she didn't know how to conceptualize that. She'd never seen herself in the mirror. She couldn't understand why people would wear makeup. And she kept telling them, like, why would you try and look pretty? Like, who cares? Like, why does it matter?
And
'Cause
that,
she'd
like
never seen herself.
and that beauty had become pointless, and when she saw herself for the first time, that was crazy to me, like, of like, wow, you've never seen yourself for, like, what, 60 years of your life? That's crazy because that's and then I think that there are parts of this novel that I'd be really interested to reread it later in my life too,
Mhm.
but I also think it was really hard for me to read at points as I was like, wow, like, if our humanity is determined by how we spend our time and who we spend our time with, like, to really analyze that, then you're like, "Oh, like, all of this other stuff that we're doing is just a distraction from the fact that we are, like, slowly dying." Which is a very depressing thought, and I don't like to spend
Yeah,
my thinking about that at all. But it's just such like, it's one of those novels where it's like, it's great in the way that it also makes you uncomfortable because it makes you
yeah,
the realities of life, and I mean, like, just concrete, basic, like, I'm not talking about anything else, just basically the fact that we are all going to die, and how do we cope between the time of now and how we get there? How do we get
yeah.
there at what point?
I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me was that it was not I would not consider this, like, a very outspoken piece of feminist literature, like, that's not because it's not that it was a pro-feminism, anti-patriarchy situation,
No.
because she encountered multiple other bunkers with men in them that did not escape, and it's very clear that it didn't matter who you were. Everybody was subjected to the same life that she had lived. But I think the thing that really stuck out to me was that we all know how to think and how to form opinions, even if they're our own or not our own, based off of like the context of what we're surrounded by. Our parents have taught us this, our teachers have taught us this, our grandparents have taught us this, our friends have taught us this. And she was never taught this by the people she lived with because they had context of life that she did not. They'd been outside the four walls of this cell. They were able to learn how to do these things and they didn't have to know why and they didn't know how to they didn't know how to articulate to her the mechanisms that are used to think,
Yeah.
whereas she had to figure out those things on her own. And so I think the thing that sticks out to me that's just so interesting is that she was able to develop so many crazy character traits, like her
Mhm.
empathy of not wanting her friends to suffer, so she became a murderer, but she
That
thought she
was
was
crazy.
giving them a mercy. Though her ability to find kindness, like to let her friend hug her when she's never been physically affectionate, like all of these things. And I just am so curious if the men had escaped the same way Lord of the Flies, they have to build that society on their own as kids
Right.
with no right? Like, I just wonder if the same character traits of, like, courage and the she was so driven that she wanted to walk every single day, and even when she knew every day a little bit more that she was never gonna find anything, she still wanted to. Like, I just am so curious as if this was told from a male's perspective or if one of the men had escaped, what worldview they would have formed for themselves,
I
and if it
also
would have
think
been the
it's
same.
really interesting the premise of she was stripped of like, everything was given to them, like, food was never an issue, shelter was never an issue, like, these basic things that make up, like, how you need to survive. The only thing you don't have, which is the most essential element of survival and the most necessary element of survival, is companionship, and how, like, that is of the utmost degree of importance to, like, humanity, and, like, there have been proven studies that, like, a child could have everything, but if it doesn't have human connection, it will die,
Yeah.
and that was such an interesting thing of, like, okay, well, then it does speak to humanity of, like, okay, well, if you can eat and you have shelter, then it like, I kinda got to the idea of, like, because Lord of the Flies, like, they're fighting for right, like, their survival in, like, a very different way, and this was, like, purely survival for the act of understanding what the point of what the point of their existence and what the point of their suffering was, which is a
She was
very
surviving for the sake of just surviving, like, she had no other and she knew that the only reason she was surviving is because she just wanted to see why. Like,
Right.
she knew that she could just commit suicide the way that other women in her group did, and she just didn't care. She was like, "I know I could, but I'm never gonna get any answers that way, and even if I get no answers this way, like, I'll never know what survival is."
And how she was also determined by her otherness because she had never like, when everyone died, she was like, "I'm gonna be fine because I'm not missing the things that I don't know the luxuries that you are talking about. I've never experienced them, so what do I
Yeah.
have this? Like, I don't know what it's like to take a bath. I don't know what it's like." And then when she started talking about, like, Shakespeare and when she started talking about, like, Don Quixote wait, right? Yeah. When she started
Yeah.
talking
Yes.
like, all of those books, I was like, "Oh my" it was so weird to hear her talk like, because the entirety of the novel was her talking about things that, like, very not I don't wanna say basic things, but, like, talking about things that, like, were so not the life that we know. To hear her talk about something that, like, touched our world right as she was, like, leaving hers was such a weird paradox to me, and
Yeah.
I thought it was so creative, and then also, like, the tragedy of, like, knowing that she is going to die because at the end of this story, like, the story has ended because she has determined that she no longer wants to be here anymore. And
Yeah.
that and, like, how she read all these stories to learn how to write so that she could write the story so that one day somebody can find it, and that's the point, like and then it just also spoke to me as a writer too of like, okay, well, that's the point of writing, right? Isn't it to pass on the stories to somebody else so they can help you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
was like, "This is why I do it," but, like, you're doing it in the most, like, "I need to do it" way because you don't even know why you're here and what's the point of it, and I'm doing it in a way of like, "Oh, I wanna heal the things that have happened." I just, like, as a writer,
It's
amazing.
also just I mean, I just had such a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that I was thinking like, "God, if I was in her position, I wouldn't wanna keep doing this anymore. How is she still doing this?" And then I realized that the reason very strategically by the author, the women that did commit suicide or turned into shells of themselves or just couldn't continue the journey after escape were the ones that were the closest in age a couple of them died of age, obviously, but the ones that died of non-age or external purposes died because they did not want to survive in their escape because they thought their escape was going to give them back their past, and it didn't. There
Yeah,
was no past for them to run to, whereas she didn't have a past. So she
yeah,
didn't care because her escape was her just new future. There's nothing to look back on. She has no
yeah,
memories to sit there and be like, God, I wish I could go home. Whereas they thought that they were going to get out and see the world again.
yeah.
And so they couldn't stand to live in a place where they couldn't have that.
And also the idea that we are determined by our pasts, and that's that is the thing that makes us who we are, and that's what brings us home, right? Is, like, our pasts and
Yeah.
how we compare our presence to our and, like, that, like, point in time of, like, determining that you live in that moment, and I don't know, it was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I think those are our final thoughts of that. I do agree with the people that say that this is going to be a modern classic. It was on the modern classics table at Barnes and Noble. I could totally see this being a recommended read for schools in the coming years or for
Oh,
like
for sure.
whatever.
It's very similar to a book, The Awakening.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's not totally similar to The Awakening, but I would say the, like the staccato rhythm of the writing is it reminds me of Miranda July, if anybody's ever read Miranda July. She
Yeah.
writes, like, very staccato, like, very pr like, "I do X, and so I'm gonna do Y,
Yeah.
and then I do Y, so I'm gonna do Z," instead of it, like, I feel like other storytelling is like, "I did Y because of A, and then
Yeah.
B happened, which then caused me to jump to D." You know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense
Yes.
at all? Yeah.
With that, we have our February book of the month picked, and I actually bought this at an airport, so I feel the need to show everybody. But we're reading Remain
Wait, wait.
by Nicholas Sparks, and I don't want to mispronounce this, so I'm just going to say M. Night because I don't want to mispronounce the last name of this author. But it's a co collaboration, and it's essentially a okay. I don't know what genre to categorize this in other than I know that there's a romance element to it, and I thought that this is not a book I've seen talked about online a lot, so I thought that for February, it would be cool to have a unique romance that maybe is not circulating as heavily because 'cause I'm sure everybody's For You pages and online platforms will be searching with the book you must read for Valentine's Day. So I thought we would give you something I don't know, me and Ellie went back and forth with a lot of different books we could choose for
Yeah.
February, and we kinda just kept going back to, like, "But this one's cool," and, like, "We haven't seen anything about it, so whatever." It just seems I
Yeah.
don't know. It's kind of like a less cheesy romance than I think we're used to falling into.
I would say so. I'm excited. I think it's gonna challenge me. A lot of these books of the month, I'm also excited about them because they're pulling me in a different direction than I normally go, which is very intriguing. But don't worry, I have books that I'll choose
The
and look.
coming months that we have mapped out, Ellie has been on top. I know it looks like I'm controlling book of the month, but Ellie has we went back and forth on this, okay? We had a lot of conversations when I recommended this. To give you guys just a quick gist, essentially, this guy goes through a stint of being in a psychological ward treatment situation after his sister passes away. And on her deathbed, she confesses to him that she thinks that she can still talk and communicate to dead people if their souls haven't left Earth. And it sends him into a full fucking spiral because he's like, why is my family nuts? Okay. So he moves to this island. I think it's an island. Don't quote me. And he's like, I need to get away and I'm going to start this new life. And he's so in his effing head about everything that his sister said. And also just now he's out in the real world again and things are weird and funky that this town starts giving him the heebie jeebies a little. Something ain't so right. But there's also a really attractive girl catching his eye. So can he ignore those things if there's a really pretty girl? Who knows? Anyway, Ellie mapped out the chapters for you guys, so I'll let her explain that. But
We're gonna
Remain is a natural love story.
love. There's 4 weeks in February where we all will be reading together. One of those weeks, Sid and I are finally actually, no, it's this week that Sid and I are reunited.
Yes.
When you're watching this, we're finally back together again, and so you're gonna read 8 chapters every week because there's about 32 chapters. There's, like, an 8 months later epilogue, so we're including that, and you're just gonna read 8 chapters each
Mhm.
week, and we'll talk about it like we do at the end of the month. If you loved it, if you hated it, if you however you feel about book of the month, please let us know. We love it, so we want to know how everybody else feels and if you followed along. Anyways, that is all we have for today.
Yeah, and by the time you're seeing this, me and Ellie will be sitting here together hanging out, so yeah, that's really exciting for us at least, and we hope you enjoyed this wonky ass episode.
Yeah. We hope you learned a little bit something new. Maybe a new book or two. Who knows?
Or maybe you know us a little better. This was pretty telling, so
For sure. All right. We will catch you in the next one. Thank you for listening and being here. Bye.
love you. Bye.